All right, welcome to this training where we're going to go ahead and break down the phone communication laws. We're going to go ahead and make it super simple for you. We're going to go ahead and get through it very, very succinctly so that way you understand exactly what are the phone communication laws so you can make sure that you are avoiding getting in trouble. So we're going to talk about, hey, what are those phone communication laws? How long does that approval take? What happens if I do not register, if I decide to go ahead and just use a business phone number without registering? Let's go ahead and talk about that right now. So first and foremost, what are the phone communication laws? So just like any industry, there are rules and regulations that are there to make sure that people who are in the industry are compliant. Okay, think about how much spam there would be if people were just messaging you non-stop across the entire country, and then how much fake news and information would be spread. It would be terrible, right? And so what has happened is that over the last couple of years, the phone carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, they have created guidelines on how businesses must engage in SMS and text messaging and business phone calls and how they have to actually orient themselves, how they actually have to behave on those specific channels. And so because of that, it has become extremely strict on making sure that there are no bad actors who are using telemarketing and spam text messaging for fraudulent activities. And so what has happened is that as of 2023, there is a new registration, there are new laws that have been created that are called A2P 10DLC. Okay, I know it sounds like a funky name over there and you kind of get used to it as you get more and more exposed to it. A2P 10DLC registration is the rules and regulations that they have created in order to make sure that everybody is compliant. Okay, so what is A2P 10DLC? So 10DLC stands for 10-digit long code number. That is just a fancy way to say that the typical phone numbers that you and I are familiar with, right? Let's say, for example, you have a phone number. So I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. So my hometown has the area code 407. So 407-876-3485. Don't worry, that's not a real number, or I don't think it's a real number. But over here, this is going to be a 10DLC number, okay? So what happened is that beginning in 2023, the major carriers said, you know what? We're now going to create a registration requirement for making sure that every single business 10DLC number, which is this right here, is registered to an actual business to make sure that the SMSs that are being sent out are trustworthy and reliable. Now, it's very important to note that the A2P 10DLC registration only applies to US phone numbers that are text messaging US phone numbers. It is not required for phone numbers outside of the US or for toll-free numbers. It's a whole different process. We'll get into that later on, right? So if you are in Canada, this is not something that you would need to register if you're just messaging Canadian customers. Only those who intend to use a US phone number to text US customers will need to go through this registration. Okay, now compliance is actually critical so that way you can make sure that you're avoiding fees, your text messages getting blocked, and those kinds of things. And so if you do not register your number, then your text messages will be blocked from being sent out. Okay, and so this entire registration process, there's actually a committee. It's called the Campaign Registry Committee. They are the ones who actually approve every single one of those applications. So this is not something that we or ClientKit or other companies have anything to do with. This is all going through the committee, the Legal Registration Committee, that is a separate committee that's been created by the government and the phone carriers to actually handle that approval process. So sometimes that approval process can be lengthy, but fortunately for you, you are inside of this program. And so even though that registration is mandatory, what we've gone ahead and done is we've gone ahead and made sure that this is as easy as possible for you, even though the vast majority of businesses right now in this new A2P 10DLC world are struggling to be able to go ahead and figure this out on their own. Because you're in a community-based program like the way that you are right now, guess what? We've already gone ahead and created those assets that we're going to be walking you through, so that way it's very, very easy for you to be able to go ahead and get approved through this process as long as you follow the instructions that we go ahead and outline. Now, we do want to also go ahead and just set the expectations here in terms of how long is that process going to take. It really is going to differ based off of a number of factors, and we'll talk about those. But even though we've gone ahead and created 99% of those assets for you, and ClientKit has also gone ahead and created a step-by-step submission application, depending on when you're going through this training, we are hearing that sometimes the approval process can take up to 4 to 6 weeks. And so that is the reason why that's pretty much what's standard approval time for any business looking to register a business phone number. Now, one important note on here is that registering your phone number through A2P 10DLC only applies to text messaging for right now, okay? And so what that means is that as soon as you go ahead and obtain a phone number, you can actually start making phone calls and receiving phone calls immediately, right? You don't have to register in order to do that. What we are talking about is the registration is specifically for text messages. And so when we walk you through purchasing a phone number, we will go ahead and walk you through and remind you of this once again that, hey, Once you buy your phone number, which is very, very cheap, it's like $1 or $2, then it's very easy for you to go ahead and start making phone calls, but you have to go through the registration process in order to send text messages. Now, again, that 4 to 6 week process, that's not going to harm your business. Don't worry. We have plenty of things that you are going to be able to work on in terms of marketing and sales, as well as being able to send out emails and all that kind of stuff to get your business up and going. So it's not like you're just sitting there like a entrepreneur or wannabe entrepreneur who's like, you know what, I'm just going to take it easy, wait 4 to 6 weeks. And no. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get you rock and rolling while this is happening in the background. So again, as you are continuing through the trainings, we will go ahead and get you set up properly as you're able to go ahead and streamline your business and make sure that you are rocking and rolling. Okay, now in terms of how does this A2P registration benefit your business, it does so through a number of ways. It's going to increase your messaging quality, your deliverability, your content-based messaging is not going to get marked as a spam, so it's going to be verified. It's going to make sure that you reduce disruption as well, so that way you don't have to worry about, oh, my text messages aren't going through, that's not working, as well as it's making sure that your users, the clients that you have, the customers that you have are going to have a positive experience, because the more and more people who are being registered through this process, it makes sure that we're getting less and less text messages as a whole. So this applies for you and your family as well. So it's just a very good thing to make sure that you are getting registered, so that way it helps your business overall. And so our recommendation is like, hey, it is a one-time process. You go through it one time and then you never have to worry about it ever again. And it has so many benefits for your business. But again, the decision is up to you completely. Right now, in terms of, you're like, you know what if I just purchase a phone number, a business phone number, but I decide not to actually register? Well, number one, you probably are not going to get your text messages to actually go through, okay? Plus, registration is required. But the other thing is that, let's say, for example, you do get your text messages to go through and you don't register. Well, here's the thing. Well, if you don't register your number, potentially it could be resold. So there are large companies out there that what they do is they say, okay, you know what, these numbers are not registered. We're going to go ahead and resell them. And then guess what happens? Let's say, for example, you're using your number, but then somebody else gets sold your exact number as well. And then if they're going ahead and sending out all these dangerous messages or all these kinds of messages that are out there, you could be liable for the messages that other people are sending. And those have some hefty fines, right? T-Mobile just announced that for tier 1 violations, the $2,000 fine, for tier 2, $1,000 fine, for tier 3, $500 fine. So we're talking about, literally, they call it SEV0 violation is the most severe consumer violation for non-compliance fine that carriers can actually go ahead and do. So you don't want to go ahead and end up in a situation where you have these fines because of the fact that you did not go ahead and register your number, especially with how easy we've gone ahead and made it. Like I've said this 102 times throughout this training, I'm probably going to say it 102 times more, is we've gone ahead and done 99% of the work already for you, as well as working with ClientKit to make sure that there's a step-by-step portal for you to be able to submit all the templates that we've created for you. So because of all of that, and because people love to be able to prefer to communicate via text message these days anyways, in our opinion, it's a no-brainer to go ahead and get registered. So that way it's really just something that streamlines your entire business's communications. But again, like we said, 102 times, we're seeing a bunch of stuff 102 times, so that way it actually sticks, is guess what? The decision is up to you. Do you have a choice? Yes, it is your business. It is what you decide that you want to do. If you're worried about the expense of having a business phone number, don't worry. It's literally nominal. It's literally like a rounding error. We're going to walk you through an entire training section on what those costs are. You're going to see that they're very, very nominal, very much affordable, right? If you're in business. If you're not in business, you're like, hey, I'm just dabbling. That's a different story, right? But if you're in business and then being able to go ahead and get 50 to 60% of your prospects, leads, and customers to show up to their appointment, being able to go ahead and make everything faster and more efficient, allows you to build more trust with your businesses as well. It's such a no-brainer to be able to go ahead and do this. But again, it's a community-based program. If you're not sure, you can always ask inside of the community as well. And your success is dependent on you. It's like, hey, if you decide to proceed in the business phone number, you're going to see the benefits of it. If you decide not to, then you're going to have to make that decision for you and your business. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is next now that we've talked about this? Inside of the next training sections, we are going to go ahead and start to break down what the costs of a business phone number are going to be, so that way you are fully empowered and not just getting into something without knowing what it is that you are getting into. And then we're going to start to break down the step by step, literally making it super easy for you to go ahead and get this done, which is another huge advantage of the reason why you are inside of this program. Ladies and gentlemen, do not stop yet. You are doing a phenomenal job knocking out these trainings. Keep that momentum going. This has been Understanding the Phone Communication Laws. We will catch you in the next training section.